The bed needs a pair of tables to go on either side. I've already milled up the stock for these, so I'm going to go ahead and start cutting the tenons into the ends. The rails on the side are going to need a dado to receive the side panels. The stiles for the side panel are also going to need the same dado as the rails. The stiles for the back need a rabbet to hold the plywood back. Cutting mortises by hand is hard work, so I've went ahead and made a little jig to cut the mortises on for the rails. I went ahead and reused my fence, created an adjustable plate for my router to slide around in. That should do it. Sure is a lot easier than using a chisel, but it does take a lot of time to make this jig and to set it up. Now that all the joints are cut and everything's been dry assembled, I'm going to take it apart, sand it down, and get it ready for assembly. I'm going to start off by assembling the side panels separately, and you'll notice that the tongue and groove paneling going inside those has already been pre-finished. It's much easier to do it now than it is to do it after it's assembled. The side panels are glued up, and now it's time to assemble the case. This always ends up making me feel like I wish I had an extra set of hands or three, but I've only got two, so let's just get going and see how it goes. The drawer runners have a little tongue that fits into a slot in the back of this stile. Now I just need to screw them in place. Now that the case is assembled and sanded, it's time to go over it with a wire brush to give it a weathered look. The tops are going to be made out of 1.5 inch thick Douglas fir, but in order to do that, I'm going to have to laminate it up. If I try to glue up single wide boards as wide as this, it's going to warp over time. So I'm going to cut this into about 2-inch wide strips, orient all the growth rings, and glue it back up again to get a more stable top. You may have noticed as I was cutting down the lumber that I didn't cut the centers of the board. The reason for this is on these wide boards we have a quarter sawn cut, and you can see all the rings of the wood are roughly vertical. This leaves it very stable. As I get closer to the core, you'll see that I start seeing the circle of the growth rings, and this part here is not particularly stable at all. You can see the cupping on these centering right on the center of the growth rings. So to cut up these center pieces, I'm going to have to be a little bit more careful. I may end up having to set some of this wood aside for other tasks that aren't quite so dimensionally critical. To do this glue up, I've selected the most stable pieces of wood to go in the center, and made sure that all the growth rings are oriented so that this is the stablest possible piece of wood that I can laminate together. I'll be making bridle joints for the drawer and the door fronts for the cabinets. I've already milled up my stock, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut the slots into the stiles. With the stiles all milled up, I can start cutting the tongue on the rails. Last, I'll need to mill a dado on all the interior sides to receive the panels. When I mill the dado in the rails to receive the panel, I knock off the end of the tenon here, and that causes a problem over here. So what I've decided to do is just put a dab of glue and clamp this in place. Now there are ways to mill this without losing that, called the stop dado, but it's just not worth the trouble. This is an easy fix. I debated as to whether I should wire brush the top or not, because I didn't want to have the surface too lumpy, but it feels okay. It shouldn't have any problem with a lamp or something sitting on it. I did go kind of heavy on the ends and on the edges, just to show off the grain a little bit, and I'm pretty happy with how that came out. I've used the best lumber I could with the best grain orientation that I could to make the most stable top possible. But there's one more thing I can do to improve the stability of the top. I'm going to cut a couple of relief lines in the top using a circular saw just to keep it from having quite so much stress on it. There, that should help a bit. I pre-sanded, pre-finished all the drawer parts so that I can just go ahead and put them together without too much trouble. To attach the drawer front to the drawer, I milled a rabbet around the outside edges, and I'll just sit right in here, a little glue and some nails. The top is attached with elongated screw holes. It still needs another coat of finish and some knobs, but I think I'm going to call this done. Thanks for watching.